Okay, this is your warm-up help for week 31. Remember, if you made below at 70%, you need to copy everything down, turn it in by Tuesday, and your grade will become a 70. So make sure you copy it down, turn it in by Tuesday. Okay, first, the running club plans to run 3 1/3 times around the school. They already ran 1 3/4 before taking a break. So I know I'm going to add 1 3/4 to something to give me 3 1/3. So in order to solve this, I know I'm going to subtract something. So right now I know for a fact it cannot be D. D is not the answer because that's going to be too much. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3 1/3 minus 1 3/4. There's different ways to do this. You can change it to an improper if you like. 3 times 3 is 9, times plus 1 is 10 thirds, minus 4 times 1 plus 3 is 7 fourths. At this point, I know I don't have a common denominator, so I know if I put it in the sled, I know that nothing goes into 3 and 4 but 1. So if I multiply those two, I get 12. So that's going to be my common denominator there. So I'm going to use 12 as a common denominator. So I know that 3 times 4 is 12. So 10 times 4 must be 40. I know 4 times 3 is 12. 7 times 3 is 21. So at this point, if I subtract, I get 19 twelfths. Now 19 twelfths is an improper fraction, so if I divide it, 12 will go into 12 will go into 1 0 times, 12 will go into 19 1 time, so I get 1 7/12 because I go clockwise. So my answer is 1 7/12 for that problem. Again, this problem is asking which expression is equivalent to 6 parentheses 4x plus y. So that means I'm going to multiply what's outside. I'm using my distributive property by what's inside. So if I multiply 6 times 4x, 6 times 4 is 24, so that's 24x. 6 times 1y is 6y. So the equivalent one would be B. That's using the distributive property. Okay, here, this problem, it says the absolute value for A, it's asking which one of these statements is false. So A says the absolute value of x, and x is -2, is greater than 1. Well, the absolute value of -2 is 2, and yes, 2 is greater than 1, so it cannot be A. B says the absolute value of x, and x happens to be -2, is equal to the absolute value of y, which is 2. So the absolute value of -2 is 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. So 2 does equal 2, so it cannot be B. C says the absolute value of y, which is 2, is less than 1. So the absolute value of 2 is 2. And 2 is not less than 1, so even though that's wrong, this is the correct answer, which is C, because 2 happens to be greater than 1. And then if I look at D, just to make sure, the absolute value of -2 is equal to 2, and we already said the absolute value of -2 is 2, and 2 does equal 2, so that one's correct, so C is the one that is wrong. Okay, again, this problem is asking which of the following is not true. So if I work each one of these out, A says the absolute value of -10 equals 10. Well, I know the absolute value of -10 is 10, and 10 does equal 10, so that is correct, so it's wrong. B says the absolute value of 5 is equal to the absolute value of -5. Well, the absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of -5 is 5. So B is correct, so that's wrong. C says the absolute value of 17, which is 17, is equal to that negative 17. Well, C is wrong, which makes it the right answer. And if I just try D, it says the absolute value of 12 is 12, and 12 does equal 12, so my answer is C. Okay, number 5 says which decimals are in ascending order, which is least to greatest, so it's going up. So right off the bat, I know it's not going to be C or D because 1 is greater than all of these numbers right there. So at first, all I'm going to do is look at my numbers. So for A, if I line up my decimals, and I'm just taking the problems right there and lining them up as I see. So I'm going to start with the lowest number. So I know 0, 0, 0 is lower than 1, so far it's good. 0, 8, 0, I know there. So this right here is not in the correct order because I know the 5 is going to be greater than the 8/10. So the 5/100 is greater. So I know it cannot be A. So without even doing the work, I know it's going to be B, but let's find out just to make sure. So if I line them up, so if I start down, I got 0, so that's least. Zeros, so that's still least. 0, 5, 8, that's still least. So at this point, I prove that it is B is the correct answer. Okay, this one's asking you about the coordinate grid location of 0, 9. So if I go ahead and make a grid right here, and I look at the point 0, 9. Well, I know this is in quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. This is my x-axis. This is my y-axis. So 0, 9, I start at my origin. It says to go nowhere. The 9 says to go up. So my point's going to be right around there, which is on the y-axis, right there. So my answer is D. Okay, number 7's asking you which one's the better deal. So the better deal would be the lowest cost price. So an 8-ounce bag of chocolate costs $4.08. So if I want to find out how much it costs per 1 ounce, there's many things I can do. Probably the easiest would be to divide. Move your decimal up. 0. 8 goes into 45 times. Bring down the 8. 8 will go in 8 one time. So the 8-ounce bag costs 51 cents per ounce. The 10-ounce bag, again, best thing to do is probably divide. 10 does not go into 4. 10 goes into 41 4 times. 10 goes into 10 one time. So the 10-ounce bag is 41 cents per ounce. So right there, I know it's going to be D is my answer. And when I look at that, I know it's never going to be B or C because that's basically the same. So if I had to guess, it would be A or D, and D is my correct answer.